All right, yo, everybody. Here we are on another episode of the MindBody Marathon. And I'm your host today, Dr. Leo Kormanik. And we have old regular Zach Goulet
Back on again.
and Tina Ryee on the show here. She is the women's 6K race director, which is basically for the last, how many years? 3 years has been?
5 years. This will be year 5, actually.
Year 5. So the last
Yes.
4 years has been the U.S. women's 6K champs. And thus, again, it'll be the same, right?
Yes.
So USA Track and Field women's 6K champ race here. She's a race director. So fill us in on how this race came into fruition.
Yes. Well, first off, thank you for having me here.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Yes. So this was a dream of mine, I want to say nearly a decade ago, actually.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So I always want to give the event the right amount of time that it deserves. It was something of mine that I had thought about in my head a decade ago when I was working out in Colorado. I was in one of those jobs that sucks the life out of you. And you're daydreaming about what your life could be. So
wow.
Yes, that was where I was at. And I was actually very far removed from the running community, which running had a lot to do on my life. But during that time of life, I was so far away, removed from that mindset. So I started pondering on what my life could look like if I didn't do this job. And I started thinking about something that I could create that had meaning to it, gave purpose, and obviously a no-brainer, running came to mind because it had such a huge impact on my life. And I started contemplating on what that could look like. And first, I think my first idea was, I could run across the state of Ohio and document it and be on YouTube. And then I thought about it more and I'm like, okay, no, I'm not doing that.
Then you actually have to do it.
Yes, exactly.
And you look at the mileage and you're like, oh.
Yes.
That'll hurt.
Absolutely. And I was more a mid-distance runner. So I was like, I am not running all those miles.
You can do it though.
I could have.
You could do it now if you wanted.
Oh my goodness.
This is true.
I could
mid-distance runner, doing.
Were you a mid-distance runner?
So that's a whole nother story. I was, and then Coach Hazen converted me into becoming a 5K runner on the track my senior year.
So what did you get? Because you were the first Division II All-American for Malone, correct?
Correct.
And what event was that?
That was cross country.
That was in cross.
That was in cross country. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Hence the 6K.
Hence the 6K.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep. In the 6K. Yep.
Connecting the dots.
Connecting the dots.
Okay, so you were trying to figure out your purpose. You're trying to figure out, something you could do running wise that give back to the community. So how did you land on the distance and the event and Canton and all that?
Yeah, sure. So, pondered nearly a decade ago. Fast forward to I was on a visit 7 years ago to just visit home because I'm from Ohio. And I had lunch with actually David Gramlich and Coach Hazen. And we were at John's Bar and Grill for lunch. And they were, it's really good. We were talking about me potentially coming on as a grad assistant. And I was just visiting Ohio. So to me, during that time, I was sort of a vagabond, like not wanting to commit and come back to Ohio. And I was like, oh my goodness, for 2 years, even though now I know that was like nothing. So we talked about that and I eventually accepted that position. And obviously the stars aligned because during that time I came on as an intern with Jim Chaney, who puts on a ton of races in Stark County with Run to You Racing. And I had a part-time gig with them while being a grad assistant coaching for Malone. And that idea just always stuck with me about an event that could bring meaning, purpose, and eventually that I narrowed it down to become an all women's event. And I want to say COVID is what really put it all together. So COVID was a time for me to brainstorm Jim Chaney and I and talk about this women's event and how we can focus on really just organizing this event that's an inclusive all women's only event. And we had both noticed that USA Track and Field had never, ever had a 6K championship distance race when it came to their road racing circuit.
Which is kind of crazy to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a distance that is run, and
I
it's
mean,
not
Yeah, but their interest in
one. Yeah,
distance
Yeah.
and road racing is less than other events, to say the
Yes.
least.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Um,
They try.
they do. They do. So we saw an opportunity here. And not only we were going to do this event regardless if USA and Track and Field was involved, but we saw an opportunity to put in a bid to create this championship for them. So we, as people like to say, we shooted our shot. And a few months later, they gave us the call and said, we absolutely love this idea.
Oh, cool.
We've actually ran it through some of our higher end elite runners. They like the idea. They want to make this happen. And so both of us were like, oh, okay, we're going to do this.
So what time frame was that?
Oh, goodness. That was right around fall of 2020.
Okay.
So we were entering into 2021. 2021, that was the first year
Mm-hmm.
that it happened. And so there was still a lot of things we needed to go through, just getting the race sanctioned, it's certified. Then everything got cleared in March of 2021. And then a few months later, we had the first ever USA Track and Field Women's 6K in Canton, Ohio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a great event. We
It
were
was.
there. We were.
It's
helping out. It was-
exciting. I love it.
Yeah.
I love just being there. It's a great atmosphere.
So you talk about, bringing purpose and inspiration to the community. How do you think do you think you've accomplished that? Do you think you've done that to the community? Do you think are you happy with where it's at?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm someone that I'm always thinking I'm not doing a good enough job, but looking back at the progress that the event itself has made, I want to say yes. Just some of the personal stories I've heard too and these are stories I hear like a year or two later.
Yeah.
And their experience at the race has been so meaningful. And so I want to say yes, it's really evolved into my vision, so much that Jim Chaney was so gracious to take this project and really kickstart it for me. He was a huge mentor for getting the race off on its own 2 feet. And then last year was a big step for me where I actually took the race and put it under my own nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that was a huge year. Last year was a huge year for me. And I think what's really neat about the event itself is empowering women. And little did I know I was actually empowering myself through the process.
Yeah.
Which is really neat to see. But regarding, empowering myself, I think it's really made a huge impact for women. And some of the stories I've heard women that they just gave birth to their newborn, and then a few weeks later they walked their baby in our race.
Yeah.
And they felt just so empowered to be there. I've heard women where they were going through a drug and rehab program, and they were invited to come to this race, and it was right after their program, and they just felt so emotional about being able to accomplish something, especially with the journey that they were on. And so I've heard some of these stories have just made huge impacts in people's lives. And so I feel like it's made above and beyond like changes in people's lives that I could ever imagine.
Man, I love hearing that.
Yeah, same.
We, from our end of things, we've definitely, we have obviously helped support on the medical side with the elites. And we know a lot of the community members that have run it, a lot of patients, a lot of friends, family and stuff that have run it. And it's an exciting event all around for everybody that does it. And I think I love that it's a women's only. And I really think that's important because I couldn't be more supportive of like the movement, like Girls on the Run and, some of the different organizations that are out there empowering women with regards to, athletics and just feeling like you could do things. And I think there's a special mark because the 6K is such a unique distance for women. Can you explain that?
Yes, actually. So how we came up with the 6K was when we were at our drawing board, Jim Chaney and I, initially it was going to be a 5K. And I started thinking about it more, and I'm like, okay, how can we actually stand out? Because there's so many 5Ks out there, right? And everyone loves a good 5K. but I wanted us to really stand out among everyone. And so I thought about my experience, where I came from, being the first All-American for Malone University in cross country. And, we never used to race a 6K. It was always the 5K on the NAIA championship level. And I thought 6K really does, to me, in my experience, represents women, because the 6K is universally Division 1, 2, and 3. It's the 6K championship distance that you are racing.
Yeah.
And so I pitched it to Jim. I said, what about a 6K? And he was really intrigued by it, because he was like, a 6K, because you just don't see that distance often.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you compete on the collegiate level in cross country, you're going to know what that is. But
Yeah.
majority of people, not so much. They're like, a 6K. So he really liked that idea as well. It was unique. It's a new PR for people. And to me, it represented women.
Mhm.
So that's really how we came up with that distance. And I'm really proud about that distance.
It's a really
because-
cool, actually, to piggyback off that, I have a lot of female clients that have run your race.
Mhm.
And the thing that's really cool about the 6K distance is that it gives those runners the confidence to be able to run, the traditional
Mhm.
5Ks, because most of them will say, like, yeah, when I ran the 6K last year, I actually PR'd in my 5K and all
Yeah.
I had was a K to go.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you can actually do more than what you think you can do, because it's such an obscure
Mhm.
distance for road racing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That it garners inspiration, confidence, everything. And
Yeah, well,
it's
if
really
you-
neat.
Exactly. And if you didn't run in college, it is 100% unique.
Mhm.
You literally, I've never actually heard it outside of college.
Mhm. Right.
And so, like Zach said, it's going to be a PR no matter what, if it's your first time.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it's sneaky, right? Because you can PR through the 5K, and then you realize, especially because it's downhill,
Right.
and then it really further inspires women to push themselves beyond
Mhm.
what they thought.
Well, even
Yes.
like my wife is new to running and wanting to run more and get into, more distances. She's done 5Ks and she's always excited at the end of them. And,
Sure.
but that jump from like a 5K to doing a 10K for her, it's like, that's a lot more than what I'm comfortable
Yeah.
with. But she's excited to do the 6K because it's just a little bit further, but it's going to nudge her in that direction to just continue to challenge herself.
Yeah.
Right.
And really kind of surprise herself and what she can do. And it's a fun event.
So walk us through the not-for-profit. So walk us through that and what it's
Mhm.
for and everything
Sure.
there.
Sure. Yes. So our Women's 6K is on a nonprofit organization called Top Tier Athlete. It was actually a business that I created on the side when I was a assistant coach at Malone, where I did Top Tier stands for Tina Oprin Project. That's my maiden name.
Nice.
And I was training younger athletes, just usually girls that just wanted to become better and better in their performance. So I was doing that on the side to help pay for my wedding at the time. And so I already had it under an LLC at the time, and I always wanted to do more with it. So it just made sense when I broke away from Run 2 racing to want to take the race in a different direction to put it under that. And while that was happening, making Top Tier Athlete a nonprofit organization. So while I was planning it on my own 2 feet last year, I was also in the process of becoming a nonprofit organization. And really what we are gearing towards is really being full-time, year-round, making changes, not just this one-time race in July, which is still really inspiring and
Mhm.
powerful. But hopefully in the next few years, I can say I'm fully running in Top Tier Athlete. We're well in advance in the community. We're setting up mentorships for young girls and women, specifically focusing on entrepreneurship, and then
Yeah.
really creating a
beautiful.
scholarship foundation for the Stark and Summit community for young girls to help also just with higher education. So that's really what we're focused on. That's our long-term goal,
Yeah.
and we've come a long way.
That's awesome.
Yes, we have some really significant sponsors this year that are just really behind our mission, one being PNC Bank. I met with them, and that was obviously a relationship I established for a year and a half, but they really see the value in what we want to do, which is awesome, because obviously I can sit here and say, oh, I value this. But when you have other people behind you,
Yeah.
it makes it makes change.
Mhm.
So that is really where we're heading in the direction where, yes, our race is awesome. And this is always going to be a year-round celebration. But our long-term goal is to expand, be year-round, hopefully have a few more other races.
Right.
I'll give you that little nugget. And really making change and efforts in the community.
So in addition to potentially having other events throughout the year with regards to races, what other things are you looking to do to kind of expand throughout the year to kind of make it you keep saying a year-long celebration.
Mhm.
What are some of the things you want to implement there?
Yes, I think what we want to do is creating a safe space for women. One that really just tug on my heartstrings was the story I shared with you about the woman in her recovery process, and finding an outlet that is not only going to benefit her health wise, but her journey of staying sober.
Mhm.
And so for me, our goal is creating run groups within the community where we're really focusing on all women inclusivity, especially with women that are maybe coming out of just a hardship,
Yeah.
and really advocating for, changing people's lives through run and fitness.
Mhm.
And then also setting up workshops where, if you have an idea, we're setting you up with the tools to help you really create your own business. So,
Well, I love that because,
Mhm.
when we talk about the generalization of hardships for women, I mean, you can have like domestic violence, you can have all sorts of, battered relationships and things like that. And a lot of times in those scenarios, women feel not empowered.
mhm,
And then if you empower them with, skills of entrepreneurship, skills of job creation, skills of athletic endeavors, then all of a sudden, the brain is very goal oriented. So if you kind of create those empowering scenarios, that it'll just be like, all right, well, I'm just going to start doing these things, and
mhm,
it's just going to start to feed itself. So I think that's awesome that you're taking that
Yeah, that's really
comprehensive
neat.
approach.
mhm.
Yeah.
No, I really appreciate that. It's obviously, as you know, just building a business, you're starting from the ground up, and it's been a lot of work, but I've seen the change over the last couple of years and where we're heading, and it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
in like the Stark Summit, specifically the Stark area, because we both grew up in like the
Mhm.
Canton area and
Yes.
everything. And one thing that I can always take away from it is that it's very community oriented. It's kind of like a bubble, and
Mhm.
people that are in that community kind of know everything. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
they like word gets around. So, with having this nonprofit and having the resources in Canton, you have a lot of resources and you have
Mhm.
a lot of outreach that you can really pull from. And
Right.
Yeah.
that's the beauty of that area.
Right.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's what's really great about the event. There's so many layers to it
Mhm,
where essentially you get so much empowerment and movement.
mhm.
We talked about the distance, and the distance itself empowers you. And when I used to coach, I actually would tell people, when my ladies would ask me, Coach, how do I race a 6K? And I would tell them, you race it like a 5K.
Mhm.
And usually you're pretty successful at that. And then you have the elites.
Yeah.
And what's also really unique about the elite field in the 6K is what I love about it. I think it's a true testimony to the elite distance runner, where I always get a handful of marathon runners. They are training for marathons, but they're coming to my 6K. And then I get the steeplechasers and the
Yeah.
800 runners. And I think that distance just really brings in the ultimate distance runner.
Yep.
And so I think there's that element to the distance in itself.
Right.
But then the festival in itself, focusing on women-owned businesses, having it be on this foundation where we're creating empowerment through the community, and hopefully, years to come, you're hearing about, our foundation and what we're doing. So there are a lot of layers and components to it, but it makes me super excited. And I obviously couldn't be here without that community that you were mentioning, Zach.
Well, and like, every year that we go and, go support in our capacity, it's almost like I go there and I run into like the same people and it's just like, hey, how's it going? It's been, I can't believe it's been a year. But like each year,
Yes.
it brings in a little bit more and more people are starting to hear about it. And so that community is starting to grow and that
Mhm.
outreach could start to reach more into like this area, Cleveland, like
Mhm.
kind of what you were talking about before we got on the podcast, like starting to come up north more.
Mhm.
But it's like, there's a reason why people keep coming back to the race, whether it's at the elite level. Like, I mean, there's the regulars that come and, race
Mhm.
it at the elite level.
Yeah.
And then, the community people. And it's
Mhm.
like, every year I see the same person sitting in the same spot during the award ceremony. I'm like, wow, there's like, it's just growing, and it's
Well, that's
expanding.
a testament to everybody in the community sees the value of it, and then they want to return.
Yes.
And they want to, just like us, we want to come back. We want to bend, we want to make it work. We want to see it continue to grow, and we continue to pump it here in the clinic and with our patients. And it's like, and it's, just like Zach said, we want to see the same familiar faces. And that's awesome that it's so cool that you can, it's one thing to just kind of say, like, oh, that'd be cool if I do this. And then
that's what I was thinking too.
And then now you actually did it.
Yeah.
So then you can actually walk through, people that might be disempowered, females that might need inspiration. You can be like, look, trust me, like I had a vision and you can have a vision too. And you can make this happen. I remember years ago, I heard an interview with a lady that started Black Girls Run. And one day she just was like super depressed and super frustrated. And I worked with that group when I was living in Atlanta, right when they were getting started, because they would run at the running shoe store that I worked at down there. And I remember hearing an interview from her, and she was saying how, and I didn't know this at the time that I had initially met her. And she was like, yeah, I mean, I remember one day I was just super depressed and I'm like, I'm just going to run a marathon. And she just like did it and just trained herself and ran a marathon. And then she was like totally shocked that she did it. Cause you always had this idea of like, oh, it's just for them. It's just, that's what other people do. And that's just not for me. But then when you actually put it in your head and you do it, then you go, what else have I been holding myself back from? And when you have that broad view of like, what else have I been holding myself back from? It's like, that's a very important thing.
Yeah.
And so, like when somebody's coming out of like hardship, abuse or addiction or something like that, this is just amazing for them. And even from the perspective of like professionals, if we think of like Annie and how she's won over the last couple of years, and she had the hardship at the trials, and then she comes back and wins, and her mindset was just totally positive after that event. She took it in stride.
Yes, I love Annie. Her and I have a great relationship. But I will never forget. Leading up to race day, I would say a month leading up, I am like working very early to very late at night answering emails. And it was right after the trials. And I'm always just up late because I know I'm going to be getting some emails from agents or athletes. I always like when the athletes email me personally. And she was someone that emailed me personally. It was really late. It was like maybe 2:30 in the morning, our time. And she was on the West Coast, and she emailed me, hey, can I still get into the 6K? This was last year. And I emailed within 2 minutes, and she was shocked that I was up. And when she came in, she was like, I was so shocked with how fast you responded to me because it was so late. I said, yes, I was up. But I think about that story so much because one, she's all about women empowerment, and her story is a testimony. She had such a disappointing race at the trials, not what she thought, not what she envisioned. She came here unexpectedly, took the title, and she's just been doing phenomenal since then. Yeah. So yeah, she's great. Yeah, she has a special place in my heart.
It was exactly what I'm saying. It was that race was an inflection point for her. No question.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and that's amazing that you provided that opportunity for her. So let's get into the brass tacks a little bit. So walk us through like how you created the course and what made you decide to do what you're doing with the point to point and that downhill, the time of year, all that.
Yes. So I have to give it to Jim Chaney. He was the one that really created the course. I had little to say on it, and I'm grateful for that because it's a phenomenal course. But
why did he choose the style that he did?
Yeah, sure. So I will say I had a lot to do with the start. I wanted Malone to be involved. At the time, I was the head distance coach for women at the time when we first launched it. And I really wanted Malone to be a part of it. Sort of, a little bit symbolic of my own journey and how this idea came to be was from my own running experience at Malone. And so I guess I did have a little bit to say, but we
it has to be here, Jim.
I mean, I really did. Is that as long as we start at Malone, I'm good with it. And he was fine with that. But we really made it a point-to-point race. One, there are some restrictions, it being a USA Track and Field sanctioned event. So you have to have course legitimate just legitimate marks to get it cleared. But really, we made it a point-to-point race. Was we wanted it to be a rolling course as it is that first mile. It's pretty relatively flat, and then you have this gigantic hill right before you go downhill. And so we wanted it to be fast because it was a championship race. We wanted elites to come, and the course is just very appealing in that regard. And then also just for new women, right? They're like, what's a 6K?
Yeah.
And so we didn't want them to be intimidated. So we felt it was crucial and strategic of us to make it completely downhill after, you get up to that hill. Actually, we're thinking about putting a sign that says it's all downhill from here because it legitimately is. Once you get up from 15th to Market, you are completely going downhill. So we really wanted to just emphasize in people's journeys in life and women, right? You're like going through this treacherous course and you're climbing this gigantic hill and you are like, when is this ever going to end? And much with women battles and whatever anyone's story is, you think, when is this going to end? And then you get to the top and you're like, I can see it. I can do this.
Love the symbolism.
And so, so for many layers, that's really why we chose that course. People love the course, which is great. I love to hear that, that feedback, because we have thought about changing it or moving it. And that was something that went through my head actually going into 2025, and it has remained the same. We have not changed it, but there was a lot of moving parts when we thought about, what this course should look like.
I also think the faster course favors the time of year because everybody's coming off the track and, people, it's the summer, people are looking to run fast. So, but why the summer? Was it specifically to capture that time of year for those athletes?
Yeah, it's in between usually. I know this year's a little bit different, but it's usually right after USA championships. So we wanted to have it where we would still get a great elite field. But also for me at the time, I was a full-time collegiate coach. And so I could not do it any other time in my calendar.
That's really the reason why.
That's really the reason why. Let's just get down to the nitty gritty. Summer was really my time to do anything other than coach. And so that had a lot to do with it as well.
Now, let me ask you this. Is it the best last K of all road racing?
Oh, I want to say yes. I don't know.
I mean, especially from what I can think of in the USATF circuit, I would say it's probably,
It's got to be.
It has to be.
The element of surprise. It's the element of surprise.
Yes.
When they round that corner and come in.
Right around that corner. I mean, and we count it down for them. They know the last mile, the last 800, the last 400. We're counting it down for them. But I'd love to look into that. I bet it is.
Statistically, it's got to be the fastest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about the start? Like the start is very unique to this event. So how did you kind of come up with that idea?
Yes. So as you know, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's at Malone. I really wanted it to be I wanted to put Malone on the map. Again, much for my own selfish desires and my own story.
Well, and the history of Malone.
Sure. Yes. Just the running culture and, what it means to me, but what it also means to a lot of people in the running community in Stark County.
Right.
But our starting line is right next to Blossom Hall, which is one of the dorm rooms. And it just made sense that if we had the elites and everyone just start there, what would be really neat is the elites start 5 minutes before everyone else starts. Yeah. And I thought strategically, if we place them here and, there's this empty parking lot and we can just rally up those community runners and any other spectators and almost make like a tunnel for these just badass women that are incredibly fast. And a lot of people, when they come to this event, they're not even aware that this type of caliber of racing is happening at the day. You know, they can't comprehend it until they see these women. They're like, oh my gosh, they are so fast. And so I think it's a really special moment, not just for those elites, but for those community runners and walkers to almost be inspired right before they take off on their own 6K journey. So that has a lot to do with it. Just making this tunnel, on Yale going to 25th. And I just really wanted to capture that.
It has a, obviously I've never run the race, but if I was going to run it, it would almost have a some, if you're running you're in the front, you're professional and you're going to go after it. It seems somewhat intimidating because it's like a drag racing long straightaway of a start.
Sure.
And you're just like, you're trying to jockey for position and just get out. And like usually races don't do that. Like
Yeah.
usually like you're going to turn soon, or it's wide open. You
Yeah.
see, how long is that stretch before you hit 25th?
I want to say it might be a 400.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Cooking.
Yes.
A straight 400 where you're just like, that's
Just cooking.
that's actually pretty wild of a start.
It
So
is,
that
it
might
is.
make for one of the fastest starts,
There you go.
because like I said, usually you're just like, you're either going up or down or you're turning right away or something like that.
Yeah.
And it just feels so like wide open and just like getting
Yeah.
after it, setting the tone.
Yeah, I wanted to set the tone, and I wanted to make a statement of the race, not only for being women only, I really wanted it to feel special and unique in every aspect that you could think of. And so you feel it from that start, and it's just really, in my opinion, it's pretty kick-ass.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely agree.
Yeah.
So, okay, what are some new additions this year and some fun things that you've added in this year? Maybe that's going to be different from the last couple of years.
Yes. So, one, I would say we really emphasized this last year was just the festival piece. We really want to have people stick around and stay around. And so, we're going to have more food trucks and just things available for the women and the finishers, more so than last year. We are actually going to be having a new MC this year. We're really grateful for Fitz. She just really served us the last 4 years and being a big part of it. But Nicolina, the Midday Diva, is going to be emceeing, which her presence in Stark County is huge. And so we're really, really excited about that. And she's just a kick-ass woman and knows how to just uplift women. So we're excited for that change. And also we opened up new divisions in terms of just age group awards. So I really wanted to, put my money where my mouth is and represent all talents. And so I opened up a walking division. So if you are a walker and you place in your age group, you will get an award, because I think that's important to just really celebrate some women that just walking is a huge accomplishment.
Do you have to like label yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So when you go to registration, you select your division. And so there's a walking division and then a running division. And so you do have to, select the right one.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously going just by honor system in the race, we hopefully don't have women running in the walking.
I think that's going to be pretty obvious. Like, you averaged a 6 minute.
Yeah.
Sure. We might, if we,
Your split down that hill was a little too fast.
Yes. Yep. And then we actually opened another division up called the Pink Division, which represents women that have battled breast cancer and are survivors.
That's
and
great.
Potentially are battling at the moment. So we just really wanted to, again,
and that's got to be very unique. I would imagine that's got to be something that nobody's thought of.
Yeah. And I want to give kudos to Davida from Fit After Pink. I work closely with her, and she just asked me to be a part of their board, which is another nonprofit focused on breast cancer survivors. And so she and I have been collaborating on that. And so there's been a lot of collaborations more. We have ambassadors this year, which they're kicking butt on social media. And
they are.
Yes, all the girls are phenomenal. I just cannot pick better ambassadors. And we weren't sure about that. We weren't sure we were going to have anyone sign up. And then we had 20 women sign up. So
it just shows the power of your of your purpose.
It really took me by surprise. I was like, I don't know if anyone's gonna want to be an ambassador. And we had so many applications that we just accepted everyone because I couldn't pick. Really excited about that. And then we are looking to have what we call a little ladies loop for younger girls after their mommies run, if they want to do like a little loop in front of that finish, where they just go loop around the water fountain and then back to the finish. And so that's something new. That's actually, you're hearing first. I haven't even launched that yet. So
maybe I can get little Mariah to do it.
Oh, yes, she'll be in.
Absolutely. So we just really want to focus, like we're going to start from, 0 to 5 if we need to. But what's really cool about that is I've seen 6-year-olds run my 6K race and they run it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, what?
That's
Oh my
weird.
goodness. That's
Yeah.
impressive. Like,
Huh.
how? That's great. So those are just some of the newer things that we're focusing on. And then last year, this was new, but we had an elite panel at Second Soul. And it was really something I thought of last minute, one of those things. And so now that we did it, we really want to be more strategic on that. So we are going to be doing that Thursday before.
Nice.
And so we have some women already committed to it. But I'm not going to say who.
Nice.
I'm sorry, but they're good. They're good ones. They're all great. But they will be coming in Thursday evening, and we're going to be doing
Sweet.
that at Second Soul Canton. So please come.
Mhm.
We really want to make it just a big event. And
Yeah.
so we're really looking forward
Almost
to
like a
that.
festival in a way.
Almost.
Yeah.
Oh, look at
So
that.
that'll be on Thursday.
That will be on Thursday. Yes. Yep. We did it Friday last year, and the elites that came were so gracious enough to do that. But I just really want to give them
Kind of took away
Friday.
from probably then the event.
Yeah. Yeah. I really want them to just focus Friday on themselves. You know, they're getting race day ready. And I just know, just being an athlete myself and being a coach, how important that is. So we strategically moved it to Thursday.
Are you sad that you haven't run the race yourself?
Oh my gosh, you know what? I get this question all the time. People are like, "Are you going to run it?" And I am a little sad. So when we first started it, I was actually in like really good shape. Like in the best shape. I was seeing Zach, I was coming up, and if it were to be a year for me to race it, I would have done it that. And now that ship has sailed, maybe, I don't know.
No way.
No.
It doesn't.
Doesn't have.
You could be like Dave McGovry or however you say his name, the Boston race director, and he runs it the night after the race.
Does he really?
Yeah,
Every year.
every year.
Really?
There you go.
I'm almost positive like he runs it later that day, and he just
Okay.
and obviously it's shut. You know, it's not shut down, but he
No.
goes out there and does it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That might be a thing I do. Like that Sunday, just get out and do it.
Put the stamp on the
Well,
Yes.
weekend.
You can make
Yes.
it another little event, and if somebody wants to do a double or something, they can run it with you, and you just
run with the race director.
yeah.
Yeah.
That could be a thing.
I like that.
I like this idea.
But
You
yeah,
gotta do
it's-
it.
You know, it's
Okay.
it could be just a fun little thing
might
for
do
you, and a way to wrap up the event yourself,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
put a bow on it.
Yeah. I'm usually hysterical that evening. There's so many emotions, right? I mean, you have emotions.
Might take away from your ability to have libations after the event.
That event just always makes me so emotional. That evening when I've like I've dropped off the last elite to the airport. I'm usually wearing a lot of hats that weekend, and I'm usually shuttling.
I
the
think we should
elites.
do a evening celebration on Saturday
Yes.
night
Okay.
at a speakeasy.
Oh, what speakeasy do you have in mind?
One in Massillon, Ohio called Print Bar.
Oh, yeah, I know a thing or two about that. Yes.
I think that would be a great
That's a great idea. We could do that.
do like an after party,
Yeah.
kind of like after the Akron Marathon.
Zach really wants to have an after party.
I think it'd be fun.
At my
Zach-
bar.
Zach is always organizing after parties.
I like this. If
Always organizing
you
a party.
spearhead it, we will 100% be open.
And that's your speakeasy.
Yes. So my husband and I and brother-in-law own a business called the Print Bar down in downtown Massillon. And our focus was it's a print shop. So we do silk screen prints, we do hats, embroidery, all you name it. And on the other side is a bar. And my husband and brother-in-law renovated it and made it a cute little speakeasy. So that is our place. It's pretty cool.
If you want me to spearhead it, I'll get this thing going.
He's already making the guest list. That's fine.
I mean, I have to approve it with you.
Of course. You have my approval. Yes, it's endorsed.
I think ambassador families,
Yes.
whatever.
Ambassadors, so I actually had a little welcome party at the Print Bar with them, and they were thinking the same thing, that we want a celebration. And so we're all on the same page.
Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. I'm done. I'm down for this.
And then we celebrate, and then you wake up in the morning and you run the 6K.
And I run
Yeah.
that. Oh gosh. Okay. Wait a minute. We need to strategically think about this. Okay, potentially if I didn't drink too much. I'm not
Yeah.
a big drinker, but I'm like, if I have 2, I'm there.
Yeah.
And you
Yes.
just chalk it up as loss, and you know what you're gonna feel like, and you just go out there and
So what's
be-
your go-to drink?
Mine?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Cocktail, beer, wine.
Oh, cocktail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Cocktail.
We have a great whiskey and bourbon selection. And tequila and vodka and all
Yeah.
the other good stuff. But
That's awesome. That's so cool. You own a speakeasy. So speaking of we're trying to get you to run the event, but what are you doing these days for running? Are you running yourself? Are you doing group? Are you leading some of the group runs? Where are you at with all this?
yes, so I actually resigned from my coaching position at Malone. I was the director of track and field and cross country there. I resigned last May, and then I actually took on a full-time gig with Second Soul, Ohio, particularly Second Soul Canton. And yeah, I'm spearheading the run groups every Tuesday and Thursday. So check it out if you're in the Canton area or even Akron area.
Yeah.
But every Tuesday we meet at Washington Square right behind Starbucks at 6:00. And then Thursday we are at the Towpath, the Second Soul Maslin store right by Ernie's.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so we're there every Thursday, 6:00. And if you check out our social media, we're really active on that. And so we usually let people know if there's a brand. We have a lot of brands that come and do demo runs with the shoes. So it's really neat. We actually have one tomorrow with New Balance.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do people follow that on socials?
Yeah. So we are on Second Soul Ohio Canton on Instagram. So we're really active on that and we're
Mhm.
usually updating that. But and then we're also on Facebook, but usually everything's generated through Instagram.
Cool.
What
Yeah.
about you personally?
Me
running?
personally? Oh gosh, everyone always asks me this.
What are you doing?
Oh my gosh, what am I doing? I run like 2-3 times a week.
Nice.
Hey, I'm there. That's what I
Yes.
do.
Yep.
Yes, but I'm proud of myself. That's huge for me. You know, I'll never say never. I say I'm done, but
You're not
really,
done.
are we done?
No.
Are we ever?
No,
Yeah, I don't know.
it doesn't have to be looked at that way.
That's
Well,
true.
that's just it. It's like it doesn't have to be a performance-oriented thing.
I know.
This,
I
you know, if you think about it, I say this to people all the time that kind of, maybe have taken a step back from the sport. It's like, I over the last couple of years, I've run like 20 marathons and
Mhm.
just kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, but not like, balls to the wall racing. And it's amazing, right? You run Boston and you get close to 1 million spectators. You run Chicago, you get almost
Mhm.
2 million. You run New York, it's like
Yeah.
these events are amazing.
Yes.
Mhm.
And when you come out of the aggressive college hardcore atmosphere,
Yeah.
it can be fun to just sort of like, delve into these things. And it
Mhm.
doesn't take a ton of training
No.
because you're coming into it with such a huge engine
Right.
and such a gift. And even Zach and I, did the rim to rim to rim last year. It's like you got so many fun things to do.
Mhm. Right.
And you're right. All you need to do is just keep a foot in the door.
Yeah.
And then say you get inspired, you're like, I think I want to do that. Then you
Right.
just train just a smidge harder. And that's
Right.
it.
Well, and also running is healthy to do.
It
So
is.
run because it's healthy for
It'll
your
keep
body.
you sane too.
Yes, it's good for like it's just it drives me nuts when someone's like, I got nothing to prove anymore. It's like, yeah, of course, none of us have anything to prove anymore, but running is like a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And it can drive community. It can
Yes.
drive a lot of things. And it's you don't have to be in that competitive spirit.
I've really
Drives me nuts.
enjoyed being the person that's been, and Shannon is also in charge of the run groups, but I've been really honored to be in charge of those run groups on Tuesdays and Thursdays for that reason. It's given me that perspective where I've just really enjoyed running and I've enjoyed the community that we're creating of just these people that are fun and lighthearted. And this is like just fun for them. Because as both of you know, we've all come from highly competitive backgrounds where sometimes it isn't so fun.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does feel like a job. And so when I have that background, sometimes you're absolutely right. It's hard to see past your times or what you used to do. But these run groups have certainly given me that perspective of just enjoying it and
Mhm.
being okay that I run 2 to 3 times a week. And sometimes those runs are just 2 miles. But you know what? I ran because it's healthy. And I will say this, I've never regretted running. That day when I go out for a run, I'm not like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I can't believe I just did that. I'm always like, I'm so happy I just did that.
Yeah.
So
Man, if you're doing
yeah.
a run group too with Shannon, I'm sure you guys bring the energy for that. Like you guys probably just have them all wound up, ready to go.
Oh yes. It certainly depends on the day for me, but we have so much fun and we have a really just good community and consistent people that show up that make it also a lot of fun. So that's definitely been something that I've really enjoyed, especially being a part of now the Second Soul family.
Yeah.
I almost get that coaching itch in me, out.
Right.
But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
So we're rounding third in the episode here. We're almost done.
Okay.
It's pretty wild. It goes by quick, doesn't it?
It does go by quick.
Any final points or final tidbits you want to bring up or kind of mention about the race that we didn't touch upon?
I would just say if you're even considering getting out there and signing up for a race, even if you just want to try it or walk it, I highly recommend the women's 6K, and not just because it's my race,
Yeah.
right? But I've just heard from so many different women where it was their first road race ever, their first road race experience, which I think sometimes can make or break a new runner.
Mhm.
And every woman that I've spoke to on this experience have said, I am so glad that was my first road race, because I just felt so empowered and just so supported that day. And so that's my biggest thing is, if you're even contemplating getting into running or doing a road race this summer, highly recommend the women's 6K. Check it out. Our information's at www.women6k.com, but just the community itself that day, you just really feel it and you feel supported. You hear from other women and their stories, and hopefully you're leaving more inspired to do another road race or whatever it is in your life that you think you need to, take control over. But that's my last
Yeah, I would
words.
say
Awesome.
that inspiration is perishable.
Mhm.
And if you feel inspired to run a road race, if you feel inspired by this episode, then sign up.
Yes.
Because, worst case scenario, you send money to a good cause,
Yeah.
even if you don't do the event.
Yeah.
And then best case scenario, you show up and you feel inspired, you get inspired yourself. And so
Yeah.
it's just like, anybody that might be, interested in doing the event, and obviously sign up. But if you know anybody that's interested in getting into road running and potentially wanting to, support women's causes and things like that, so feel free to pass along this episode and share it with your friends and family. And let's pump this race up and
Yeah.
let's get it to a
Thank
level that
you.
will
Yeah.
really change, move the dial on Northeast Ohio and helping with women's running and women's empowerment.
Yeah, I really have appreciated both of you, and just your support as well, just both being just men and really seeing the value in this event. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes.
Well, I think that kind of wraps up the episode, everybody. And thanks again for joining us on another week. But again, share this episode with anybody that you might have in mind with regards to benefiting from this event. And Tina, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best.
Yes.
Dr. Leo here. Be sure to check out my new book, Faster Without Fail, Your Guide to Overcoming Injuries and Running Faster Than Ever. It is now available on Amazon. You could read reviews on the Amazon. You can check out what other people have said about it. But basically, if you want to revolutionize your running form and better understand how to stay injury-free within the sport, this is your guide. Feel free to reach out and let us know what you think of the book. I would love to hear your feedback. But again, please check it out on Amazon. Faster Without Fail. Appreciate it. Dr. Leo here. If you want to catch me in another setting, be sure to check out my YouTube page, Running Rehab, where you will find exercises on how to stay healthy with running, how to improve your running form, and a bunch of other tips and tricks on how to get over common injuries.